Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial we will learn to chain the APIs using the Python request library. So let's begin. First let's understand what is API chaining and then we will see how we can achieve this using the Python request library. So for this one, let me show you in the notepad. So basically we talk about API chaining. This means that we will be extracting a value from one API, then we will be saving that value in a variable, and finally we will be passing that variable to other APIs. So basically we'll be extracting a value from one API and then we'll passing that value to the other APIs. This is known as the API chaining, and this is a very real-time example. And let me show you the example because most of the applications are basically starting with the login, right? So you need to log in and then you need to perform some actions. So when we talk about the login API, okay, so it will return us usually a token. So this token will actually tell us that I am an authenticated user. Okay. So then, for example, we have another API to add a comment. Okay. And we need to ensure that this user, for example, this is a user or this user is testing funder. And this testing funder will be doing a comment over here, right? So for this, testing funder needs to be logged in. So using the API, it will return a token. Okay, so here we will get a token value. This will show that testing funder is authenticated and logged in. And now using this one, I will pass this value in another API. Okay, so this is comments API, and this comments API will take this token value here, okay, so that this testing funder can add a comment. So in any kind of applications, you have a different APIs where you need to extract a value and pass it to the other to make it dynamic and in order to automate your APIs. Okay, and for this particular tutorial, let me show you this particular website. Let me copy this one and let me open this into the browser. And here we have this login API, and you see that this is a login API, and this is a post call. It contains the headers and it contains this username and password, and this will expire in 30 minutes. And then we have another API, and here you see that we are getting the current user authentication. So we will be providing the token here. Okay, so if I hit this API, it will return me. So if I click on show output, so you see that we are getting this token value. Okay, so this value I need to extract from this particular API response, and then I need to pass this token here in the headers authorization. Then it will actually show me that this is the user and I am authenticated. Okay, so let's do this. And for this one, let me open the Python here and let me create new Python file, and I will say REST API underscore, let me say it, API chaining. So the first thing is that we need to import the request. So import request, then base URL, base underscore URL is equals to, so base URL is basically, we talk about this authentication API, so base URL is always still .com. So let me copy this one and let me provide this value here, and then we have endpoint, and endpoint is basically the value after this particular URL. So I'll go here, and so this is slash login. So let me copy this one and paste it here. So now it will make a complete URL, right? So URL is equals to base URL and plus the endpoint. Okay. Now we are ready for executing this request. And if we talk about this request has the headers as well. So we need to provide the headers. In our previous tutorial, we learned that how we can provide the query parameters, and we also learned that how we can send this body as well. But we haven't learned about the headers as of now. So let's see how we can provide the headers, because this needs a header. And here, the point here is that they are specifying a content type which is application/JSON, right? So it will create a trick here, and let me go back again, and here I will say headers, and here I need to provide the header. So let me go back and copy the headers from here, complete this one, and paste it here. Just ensure that we will be using a double quotes here. So we'll be changing to double quotes instead of the single quotes. So once we have header, now we need to define a payload. So payload is equals to, and I'll go back. So this is a payload, right? So let me copy this one and paste it here, and again here we need to provide these values in the double quotes. So all values will be in the double quotes instead of the expiration in minutes, because this is integer value, and if we provide quotes against this one, this will consider this value as a string value, but this key needs to be in the double quotes, right? So we have provided this one, and now the thing which we need to do is that we need to use JSON.dumps. Okay, why we need to do this? Let me show you. So I'm creating a variable called JSON_data equals to JSON dot. So we have this dumps. Okay, and if I hover on this one, hover again, okay, so it will serialize object to a JSON format string, because in the header we are saying that the content type would be JSON. So that's why it will serialize the object to a JSON format, and this is what we need to do in order to run this API, else it will throw an error. So I will pass this object here. Okay, and now response is equals to request dot post, and now we need to provide the URL, then we need to provide the headers using a headers keyword, and it is headers. Let me copy this one from here and paste it here. Then besides header, we also need to provide a data, which is a payload here, and I will paste it here. So now our request is complete. It's a post request. It contains the URL, headers, and the payload. Okay, and now let's print the response here. Print and print the response, and let's run this one and see what happens here. So let's run this one. So it says response equals to 400. This means that there is some problem. Okay, so let me go here, and sometimes there is an intention problem. So let me do it in this way. Okay, and now this one is response. Let's run this one. Says response equals to 400. So 400 means that the request is not successful, and let's figure it out why this is happening, because the request should work fine here, and payload data equals to payload, headers equals to headers, and URL equals to URL. Yeah, the problem is basically is that we have serialized the object, so we will be not passing the payload here. We will be passing this JSON underscore data instead, this one, right? Now it should work, and it should send us the response 200, right? So far it is good, and now what we need to do is that we need to extract a response, and from the response we need to extract the token, right? So response underscore JSON is equals to response dot JSON, and from this one we need to extract a token. So I will say token is equals to response underscore JSON, and from that we need to extract a token. Okay, and if I go here, let me confirm the parameter. So the parameter is token, right? And now once we have a token, let's print this one and see either we are getting a token or not. So print, and let's print this token and run this one. So you see that we are getting this token over here. Now what we need to do is that we need to pass this token into the other API. So the base URL will remain same. The endpoint is changed. So I will call the endpoint, this is as endpoint 1, and here I will provide the endpoint for the other API. So the other API is that auth/me, right? So let me copy the endpoint, and here this is a get call. Okay, so I'll go back here, provide the endpoint. So basically already defined, we have defined the endpoint. Now this is our another URL, so I will call it as URL1. So URL1 is basically base underscore URL, then plus endpoint 1. Now we have defined this, and we know that in the headers we need to provide this authentication token, right? So if I go back and let me show you, so you see that here in the headers we need to provide this one, right? So simply what we need to do is that we need to define headers. Now already there's one headers variables defined, so I will call it as headers1, and here we need to provide the headers. So we need to provide the key. So key is basically authorization, and we'll provide the value of this one. And let me go back here. So authorization, then colon, now F, okay, and then we have bearer, and now here we need to provide a value. Okay, so once we have this one, actually we need to provide the double quotes over here. Okay, so now we have successfully passing this token into this second API, right? And after the headers, now here I will say response 1 is equals to requests dot get, because it's a get call, and we need to pass a URL, and this will be a URL1 here, and then the headers. So headers equals to headers1. And now after hitting this one, let me print the response. So I will say response1 dot JSON. And now I think we are good to go, and let's run this one and see what happens. So you see that our first request was successful. We have extracted the token, but here it says that miss invalid token, right? So here in this particular request is saying that this is an invalid token, right? So this means that this value is some problem. So I give a space over here, and now let's see. So again it says that invalid token. Let's see why this is happening, because this would be F bearer, bearer authorization, and this looks good to me. Let's see what is happening here. So URL1 equals to base URL and endpoint 1. So base URL is this one. So this is the base URL, and this is this value, and this is the value of the second endpoint. So let's go to the website here and see this, how this bearer. Okay, so basically what I think is that there's a space between the bearer and this one. So this might be the reason here. And now let's run this one. And yes, so this time the first request was successful. We extracted the token, and which is passed into the second request. Now we are getting this response. So if I go here and see, so this is the response we are getting, right, by passing this one. So let me summarize this whole code and the concept of API chaining here. So basically the API chaining is that we will be extracting a value from one API. We will be saving this into a variable. We'll be passing this variable to the other APIs to make a chain of the APIs, so that whenever you execute or automate those APIs, it will pick up the dynamic value every time, and it should execute every time, right? So just like I give an example of login API. So you need to log in, extract the token, and pass this token to the other APIs. And if I go back to the code here, so let me summarize this code. So we are providing the base URL, we are providing the endpoint, we are creating a complete URL, we are providing the headers over here, we are providing the payload here, we are using JSON.jumps. So basically the purpose of using this one to serialize, okay, so if I over this one here to show you again, so it will serialize the object to a JSON format string. If I don't do this, it will fail, right? And in our this tutorial, if I pass this payload directly, so we are getting the failure. So we need to pass this serialized value, okay? And once we have this one, we are getting the response, and from the response from the JSON, we are actually extracting a token here, and we are printing the token here. Then we are providing a second endpoint, then creating a URL for the second API, providing this extracted token to the second API, and getting the response. So in this way, you can make the API chains if we are using request library, Python request library, to test and automate your APIs. And also what you can do is that here what I'm doing is I'm giving an endpoint one name, or like this one, you can name it properly so that you can understand which API you are testing and with which API you're making a chain of the other API. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you like our content, then do like, comment, share and subscribe our channel. Once again, thank you so much and see you in the next tutorial.